Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Most of you know me. I'm Susan Bellisi, Program Director of Parkinson Place. I'm so excited and honored today to have Heather Stinson, who is an occupational therapist, and Kim Payton, who is a physical therapist with UF Health, University of Florida Health. So I asked them because I know so many people are struggling with the pandemic and being in the house, and just how to help with our daily routine with Parkinson's. So thank you so much, Kim and Heather, for being here. And also, if we're going to have a Q&A at the end, so we ask everyone to write into the chat box, and they'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. So thank you again for being here.
Great. Are we good to go?
You are good to go, Heather. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all for having us. Kim and I are very excited to be speaking to you guys. Parkinson's Place has a great reputation, and we lots of the people who come up to Gainesville talk highly of your program. So we're grateful to be speaking to you guys. So thanks for having us. Actually, Kim's going to be controlling it, so I'm going to say next slide. But we're going to be talking to you guys today about just popular topics that are coming up during quarantine and how to manage your daily routine right now, living with Parkinson's, and kind of popular topics. So Kim, go ahead, if you will, hit the next slide for me. We will say thank you because this is not all of our topics that are not innovative. There are several people who have done this topic before, so we want to just say thank you to them. I do want to give you a little bit of a heads up about our center. If you're not familiar about our location, we work at the UF Health Fixell Institute for Neurological Diseases. It was formerly known as a Center for Movement Disorders and Neurorestoration. We work under the director of Dr. Michael Oken, who is the medical director at the Parkinson's Foundation, and his team here. So we're really lucky. But we live under an idea that the patient, you guys living with Parkinson's and your loved ones, you guys are the sun, and we as an interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary team revolve around you. So we understand that living with Parkinson's is complex, and there's a lot to it. It's a long process. And that it's not just motor symptoms, that there's a lot more that go into it. So here at our location, at our newest building here that we got in July of 2019, here we have multiple disciplines here. So we have neurologists, social workers, neurosurgeons for deep brain stimulation, nutritionists. We have 2 dietitians here on staff, speech language pathologists, geneticists, physical therapists, occupational therapists, researchers, and many more. And so our presentation is coming together today, not just from our perspective, but an interdisciplinary perspective on how to address Parkinson's as a whole. Next slide, please. So what we'll do is we'll very quickly, we know you guys are well versed in what OT and PT do, but we want to give you an idea on our perspective on what we want to tell you about today. So I'll start first. What is occupational therapy? The number one thing I get is, hey, I'm retired. I don't need a job or an occupation. And that is not what I'm here to do. So I consider occupations things that take up your time or occupy your time. So I look at the things that are designed, that are important to you. So dressing, bathing, grooming, toileting, those are called daily activities of daily living. So occupational therapy is designed to restore and improve performance in these ADLs that are necessary for you to be independent and live an important and satisfying life. So oftentimes at the beginning of Parkinson's, my role is kind of small, but as you progress through Parkinson's, my role kind of increases a lot, right? So as things become more difficult for you, oftentimes my job is to keep you independent. I want you driving as long as possible. I want you living independently at your house as long as possible. My goal is to develop or maintain the capacity to perform in the way that you want to for the things that are important to you. So whether that's golfing, taking care of your grandkids, whether that is woodworking, I don't care, you name it, that's what I want you doing. Next slide, please, Kim. So in our interventions, oftentimes you might hear that occupational therapists, we do tend to specialize in the hands and the fingers. So we do a lot of finger exercises and help. We do look at the tremors, right? So we do look at the arms, the hands, the tremors. But most importantly, we are your functional therapist. And this is where occupational therapy sometimes gets a bad name. We are functional based therapists. When you go to an occupational therapist, you want to have a list of things that are difficult for you during your daily routines, and your occupational therapist should be checking those things off, right? So we help you develop a routine for getting back into activities that are important to you. So whether it's socializing, whether it's, like I said, golfing, we have a putting green back here because so many people are interested in golfing, whether that's sewing, whether that's reading. We talk about how to manage fatigue, stress, cognition, vision, which I'm going to talk to you about today, helping you have quality sleep. We talk a lot about teaching adaptive strategies. So although we can't change some of the motor symptoms, we're still going to make sure you can live whether or not you have tremors or you don't, right? How to make sure you're living safely at home. And then we address an exercise routine so that you can do your daily activities with ease. So that's kind of what we do in occupational therapy. And I'm going to pass it off to Kim now to talk about physical therapy.
All right. Thanks, Heather. Let's see if I can change the slide. There we go. All right, so physical therapy. Physical therapists, we really try to be movement experts, and our goal is to improve your life through exercise, hands-on care, and patient education. So just like OTs, we want to help maintain your independence for as long as possible. Especially with Parkinson's, we want to make sure that you're able to be physically active and you're leading an active life, whether that's with golf or with pickleball or whatever that you want to be doing to help you stay active. For a Parkinson's patient specifically, PT will be able to address rigidity, flexibility, slowness of movement. We're going to look at your walking, evaluate whether there's a need for an assistive device like a walker or a cane or something like that. We're going to look at your balance, your functional mobility, so your ability to get up out of a chair or get in and out of bed. And then look at any pain that you might be having on a day-to-day basis, and also looking at your posture as well. And our intervention can range greatly. You can look at stretching and range of motion exercises, balance exercises, strength training, cardiovascular exercise, gait training for any specific needs you might have from a walking perspective. Looking at compensatory strategies for issues like freezing of gait. So looking at whether a laser is helpful or use of a metronome is helpful. And every Parkinson's patient is going to be different. Making sure that you have the education that you need in order to perform a good home exercise program. And then making sure that you have access to the right adaptive equipment and what is going to work for you. And our scope for both PTs and OTs can kind of overlap. Like Heather said, OTs might specialize a little bit more in the hands or the vision and sleep and cognition, and PTs might focus more on your balance and your walking and your strength and flexibility. But we really recommend, if you have access to it, to look to be able to see both a PT and an OT. That way you're getting kind of that whole comprehensive care and all of your needs are getting taken care of. And our goals for PT and OT are the same. We both want to minimize your impairments and make sure that you have the strategies to improve your function and stay independent for as long as possible, despite your limitations. Make sure that we're reducing fall risk and making sure that you're safe at home. And both PT and OT are going to look at having an individualized exercise program that you can do on your own, or whether that's in skilled therapy or just with the help of a caregiver. And our ultimate goal is to extend your years, keep your quality of life, and keep you independent and safe while you're doing all of the activities that you love to do. With when to seek rehab. So at FIXL specifically, we always recommend, if you can, to see a physical therapist and an occupational therapist as soon as you're diagnosed. This is really helpful to get access to the information that you might need, get some baseline outcomes, some baseline measurements, so that we can kind of track you over time. And we're looking at comparing you to you over time and seeing if anything is progressing or changing. So at FIXL, we like to see our patients as soon as possible. And then we tend to see patients every 6 to 12 months. Now, if we felt like you needed regular therapy, then absolutely we would have you come back. A lot of times, you know, we might see you more frequently initially for like once a week for a bout of time. But then our goal is to reduce you down to what we call maintenance therapy, where you're checking in with us maybe 1 to 2 times a month, but you're relatively independent and you're able to do and accomplish everything that you need to on your own. And then we're kind of supplemental. We're there to help if we need to. But at our regular follow-ups, if you don't need us and you're just seeing us every 6 to 12 months, we're going to reassess, run you through those outcomes again and see how you're doing, review your home exercise program and see if anything needs to be addressed, if anything's changed.
And I think, but before moving on, I think something that Kim mentioned is the word maintenance therapy. And I do want to say that that is something that has changed in the last, I'm probably going to say this wrong, but maybe 3 years. Medicare has now allowed for maintenance therapy for progressive neurodegenerative disorders, also known as Parkinson's, right? And that has changed. It used to not be the case that they did not allow maintenance type therapy. And so that is something that some clinics are not comfortable doing anymore, but that is now allowable. And we have the resources for you if you need that for your therapist closer to home who don't believe that that's possible anymore. So I just wanted to emphasize that. But that being said, we reached out to Susan, who was just so fabulous, and gave us some common questions that you guys tend to ask her about, or have questions that haven't been answered to this point. And so I was going to start off with questions about home safety and how to set up the home. I'm going to breeze through this relatively quick because I know you guys have a lot of questions for Kim. But I'm going to start with home safety recommendations. So Kim, if you'll click the next slide for me, please. Thank you. If you guys have not done this already, I almost always recommend, please make sure you have done a fall prevention checklist. The Parkinson's Foundation does not have one on their website. They have a couple modified ones. And I can send this to you guys as well so you have it, but the CDC or the AARP has a really nice checklist for you to go throughout your house just to make sure that each room in your house is safe and what has things removed from certain rooms that to make sure that your fall risks are minimized, which we know with Parkinson's is a big risk anyways. And so things that you might not be so aware of, that it's a good first start. So next slide, please, Kim. The other thing that I have been talking with all of my patients about is home safety. So a lot of nice things are out there, and I know it's kind of mixed reviews, but a lot of smart devices are becoming more popular. So the AARP wrote that smart home devices such as Google Homes, Alexas, Google Assistants, Echoes, those are becoming the way of the future and are the way that people over the age of 65 are going to stay independent and stay out of nursing homes for a longer time period. And so what I'm trying to do is for people who are comfortable, I'm trying to train people on how to use these smart home devices early on before they become symptomatic or have cognitive changes. Things like Alexas or Google Homes can remind you to take your medicines. It can help you stay safe. It can put things on your grocery list. It can remind you what you needed to do when you walked into a certain room. It can help you answer the doors. It can help you. Really, options are endless. Now the new Apple Watches can actually predict if you fall. So if you have if you tend to be a high fall risk, it has a sensor in the watch that can tell. It says, hey, it feels like you might have fallen. Can I call your emergency contact for you? And if you, God forbid, hit your head, it would, and you don't respond, it will call your emergency contact and says, hey, somebody fell and they need help, right? And then either they'll call EMS or they'll call your emergency contact for you. Or if you don't need help, then you can just press no. But it's a really nice safety watch. It's a different option versus a life alert or that alert watch that you see there. There are nice wandering locks. So if you have anyone in your family who has any sort of dementia or difficulties with vivid dreams or acting out dreams or hallucinations that get you to the point where there's wandering, there's one anti-wandering locks that look very nice in your house and aren't ugly and can be very safe. And then probably one of my favorites and most popular are these motion activated under the bed night lights. So sometimes people find it hard to fall asleep at night when it's too bright, but these motion activated under the bed night lights don't turn on until your feet touch the ground, and then it lights up the ground for you. So then it tends to be very helpful for helping not freezing at night. So just a few sampling of some things that we would talk to you about in OT or PT. Next slide, if you can, Kim. Thank you. Some other safety things for cognition. Again, I'm going to mention the Alexas and the Google Homes, but there's also really nice clocks out there. They're called dementia clocks. I wish there was a better name for it, but they have really nice, simple visual clocks that can help with day and time that keep people oriented. There's medication watches. There's even a medication app on if you have an Apple Watch, or a medication clock where you can, as a caregiver, you can record your voice that says, hey, I think someone said Mark, hey, Mark, it's 12 o'clock, you need to take your pill. So if you are working while your loved one with Parkinson's is at home and you want them to take their pill, you can record your voice to remind someone to take their medicines. And then easily are these pill packs, right? And it's just a pharmacy online where you can have your doctor send the medications to, and the packets of pills come with the time and the date already prepackaged, so you don't actually have to set up the medication. So there's lots of really nice tricks for helping when memory is difficult. This other thing, if you have a smartphone, so some of their newer phones, please, 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 especially during this time of COVID, please set up the medical ID on your smartphone. This is really important. God forbid you were to fall, get sick with COVID. This medical ID allows any emergency personnel to activate your smartphone without unlocking your phone and access all of your medical information. So it can find out you have Parkinson's, it can get access to your medication, it can find out who your emergency contact is, it can tell you what medications you're allergic to, if you're on Cinemet, what medications you shouldn't take. And it's a wonderful, wonderful way to make sure that you're safe with Parkinson's, right? Because we know there's certain medications that can be more likely to cause you to have hallucinations. And we certainly don't want, if you were to have an accident or something, for you to, someone to try to help you and it actually be more traumatic. Next slide, please. And then if you don't have these, please get one of these. How many of you guys, just by raise of hands or thumbs up, have the Aware and Care Kit? Are you guys aware of it? Ironically, good. A lot of you are. The Aware and Care Kit is free. Please order it. During the time of COVID, I've been handing these out like candy. Research shows that 1 in 4 people with Parkinson's who are hospitalized, so if you have to go to the hospital for any reason, get their medicines on time, right? Could you imagine not getting your medicines on time, especially if Cinemet actually helps you or carbidopa levodopa helps you? So what comes in this free kit from the Parkinson's Foundation? It's absolutely free. It has a magnet you can stick on the nursing board. It's got signs for the nurses, a nursing fact sheet. It's got a medication form. It's got information on DBS, Duopa, but it's essentially designed to help keep you safe in the hospital. And during this time of COVID, God forbid you were to get sick or have to isolate, this is a really important thing to have. Next slide. Thank you. So a few more things to quickly talk about are some other things, hot topics people are talking about nowadays. Next slide, Kim. Some adaptive equipment. I could do a whole hour on adaptive equipment, but if you have trouble for anything, any daily activities, I want you to talk to your occupational therapist about it, right? If you have trouble holding on to items because your grip is bad, then things such as the easy hold that you'll see on the right can be helpful. If you have trouble scooping your food or bringing it to your mouth because your wrist is so rigid, then a bendable spoon can sometimes be helpful. You can see on the bottom right, if you have trouble with buttoning your shirts, you can get a button hook, or these MagnaClick shirts are magnetic shirts that are machine washable, right? If you have trouble aiming for the toilet, then you'll see there those motion detected night lights for the toilet bowl can be really helpful with aiming and making less of a mess around the toilet. So the options are really endless. And I have a link there for you that you can look at some of the resources from the Parkinson's Foundation on there. Next slide, please. If you are a care partner of someone living with cognitive changes and Parkinson's, one thing that or if you're living with cognitive changes, some things I like to mention, make sure that you're decreasing the clutter, whether it's verbal clutter, auditory clutter, and visual clutter. So if you're trying to get dressed with the TV on, or if you're eating with the TV on, you're going to have more trouble with that daily task. It's just how Parkinson's works. You need to do one thing at a time, right? Turn off the TV. Don't drive with the radio on. If you're trying to have a conversation with your spouse, turn off the TV, turn off the radio or the music, because you'll do better at that. Next slide, please. If you have tremors that are interfering in your electronic use, there's some really nice accessibility options on your cell phone and your computer for it. You could talk to your occupational therapist about it, but you'll see here under the accessibility options on your cell phone, there's a touch accommodations that allows you to ignore the repeat. So if you're pressing a button several times because of the tremors, or you're pressing the wrong button because your fingers are too shaky, you can change the length of how long you have to hold it on your cell phone. And so it gets you to not be as frustrated when your fingers are extra shaky one day. And same thing goes for your mouse or your keyboard. And your occupational therapist can show you how to make those changes. And I can also get you those links if needed. Next slide. And then real quickly, because I don't want to go into Kim's time, vision changes. We're hoping to have one of our speakers at this year's symposium that we're going to host talk about the vision changes in Parkinson's. So some of the latest research shows that vision changes in Parkinson's can occur 5 years before your first motor symptoms. So actually pretty early on. And some of those vision changes can lead to increased freezing of gait, difficulty with reading, some blurred vision or double vision, especially worse towards the end of the day or towards wearing off of your medication dose. You can have some difficulties with staying in your lane or kind of a weird angled parking. You can have some difficulty with scanning, visual scanning, sometimes difficulty with putting on your clothes the right way, difficulty with depth perception, walking downstairs or stepping off of a curve. Or even some blepharospasms where your eyes close or you have dry eyes. Next slide. So occupational therapists actually specialize in some of those eye things, right? So if you have some eye issues, you can talk to your occupational therapist about it. The number one thing that we're going to talk about is increasing contrast around your house, because Parkinson's and lack of dopamine messes with the contrast, your ability to tell high contrast from low contrast. So we would explore things like low vision contrast glasses. We would use things like a line tracker. Have you guys heard of the 20-20-20 rule for visual fatigue? Okay, so every 20 minutes you're staring at a computer, a cell phone, or reading or TV. Every 20 minutes you're using your eyes for something. I want you to look 20 feet ahead and let your eyes scan left and right. Okay? Because what happens is when you're looking so close at something for a long time period, your eyes get stiff and rigid, just like if your back or your legs would. And that causes double vision or blurred vision, right? And so with Parkinson's, that's going to be more likely to happen. And so you need to give your eyes a rest break and a stretch. Next slide, please. The other thing that causes some blurred vision and some visual fatigue is low contrast. It is also very, very important to know that you are more likely to have freezing of gait when there's low contrast. So I want you to think about ways that you can increase contrast around your house. So when you're going from carpet to tile, you can see here like a strip of orange duct tape on the ground can make it less likely for you to freeze, or stepping over the side of a tub, or going downstairs, right? Putting a yellow strip on the edge of the stairs. Even eating out of a bowl that's a bright red bowl with light colored food. So don't eat mashed potatoes off of a white plate. It leads to more blurred vision or visual fatigue. So just think about ways you can increase your high contrast during the day. It can actually make a difference visually for the rest of the day. And I've been seeing your questions, so I'll answer some of those later at the end of the presentation. But due to time, I'm going to go pass on this one, but I'm going to pass it on to Kim so that she can talk to you about her clinical pearls.
All right. Okay, so we'll switch gears a little bit and talk about exercise and then some PT clinical pearls. So what we recommend for exercise with Parkinson's disease, the goal is 30 minutes, 5 times a week. So we can kind of, say 30 minutes, 5 times a week, or goal of a total of 150 minutes per week, however you want to break that up. We like to use this RPE scale. RPE stands for rate of perceived exertion. So it's basically just asking yourself, how hard are you working on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is very light activity, like a very slow walk, or maybe a very slow stationary bike, something that you're not exerting yourself at all. And 10 is maximal effort, like running a sprint or doing like a 1 rep max on a squat or a leg press or something like that. For this 30 minutes, 5 times a week, the goal is to kind of be in this moderate to vigorous activity range. So like a 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 kind of being at the maximum of your range. And this is more for cardiovascular exercise that we're looking for, 30 minutes, 5 times a week, but it can incorporate all types of exercise. So what does the research say? There's lots of research out there on exercise with Parkinson's disease. The good news is pretty much every study that looks at exercise in Parkinson's disease shows benefit despite what the exercise modality is. So you can participate in any type of exercise that you want to do. We always say the best exercise is the one that you enjoy, because you're going to be more likely to do it. And I know you guys have been doing a really good job with COVID staying active on this Zoom platform. So that's awesome. Obviously, it's been a little bit harder recently to stay as active as maybe you have been prior to COVID. But the best evidence that we have for slowing the disease progression down is exercise. The meds help with the symptoms of Parkinson's disease, but the best evidence that we have for actually slowing the progression of Parkinson's disease is exercise. And we want it to be frequent and then within that kind of moderate to higher intensity range. So the good news, apart from helping to slow down Parkinson's disease. There's a lot of other benefits of exercise. It can help prevent cardiovascular events, slow bone loss and osteoporosis, help with mood and sleep, and decreasing your fatigue. A lot of people think when you are really fatigued that you have to rest and recover and do less so that you can have more energy. It's kind of counterintuitive, but if you're having more fatigue, the recommendation is to try and incorporate more exercise, specifically cardiovascular exercise, so that you kind of have this bigger capacity and this bigger activity tolerance. And over time, as you exercise more, the goal is to have less fatigue. Can help with gut motility and decreasing constipation. It can help improve the motor symptoms of Parkinson's disease. It can help minimize the loss of muscle strength and mass as you age. And it can help maintain your gait and balance and decrease your fall risk over time. And the earlier you start, the better. So not exercising can be kind of a vicious cycle. So if we're sedentary and we don't exercise very much, this can contribute to more cardiovascular impairment. It can contribute to more inflammation, more osteoporosis or loss of bone density. It can contribute to metabolic syndrome, which is kind of a cluster of symptoms such as high blood pressure, high blood glucose, high cholesterol, increased weight. And all of these kind of feed into continuing to have a sedentary lifestyle. And when all of these things worsen, then the Parkinson's symptoms can worsen. The motor and non-motor signs can worsen when you're sedentary. And when your Parkinson's symptoms get worse, then again, it contributes to more of a sedentary lifestyle and you kind of get stuck in this vicious cycle. So that's why we always recommend getting with a physical therapist as soon as you're diagnosed to make sure you're on a good home exercise program or whatever you're doing. We want to make sure you're staying really active early to prevent kind of getting into this cycle. But more good news. So with exercise, you have more effective use of dopamine by your brain cells. You have growth of new blood vessels and brain cells, which can help get oxygen and nutrients to stay healthy, and it can improve your quality of your thinking. It's not only going to make you feel better, but it's going to help the efficiency of the medication, decrease your symptoms, and help the formation of new pathways in the brain. You have improved use of energy by your brain cells, and increased proteins to promote new connections in your brain and less inflammation as well. So how do you get started? Obviously, you guys have already gotten started. You're here, so you're part of this amazing group and you're participating in all of these Zoom classes, which is great with COVID and everything. It's been a hard time for a lot of our patients finding ways to stay active. If you're feeling like you're having a difficult time getting on a good home exercise program, then consulting with a PT can certainly be helpful. They can help do an initial evaluation, set some goals for you, and figure out a good home exercise program. You can try, like Heather said, the Apple Watches are really popular, or some other fitness watch like a Fitbit can help track your steps throughout the day and can help track your activity and your workouts throughout the day. You can try exercise DVDs or even online versions like videos on YouTube. The National Parkinson's Foundation, there's a booklet called Fitness Counts, which is a bunch of descriptions and explanations of exercises that can help you maintain your flexibility and your strength and your aerobic conditioning. So that's a good resource to start with. And then the Parkinson's Foundation has also been putting out exercise videos since the start of COVID. They're called Fitness Fridays, and they're like 15 to 20 minutes long. So they put one out every Friday, and they're available on their website or on their YouTube page. And they've got balance ones, coordination, flexibility, yoga, all different kinds of videos on there. And then acquiring some home equipment to have a little home gym can be helpful at this point in time. And then once we all feel safer, joining a gym and finding some exercise classes. And obviously Parkinson Place offers a lot of exercise classes for you all. So the good news, we've got more good news. Parkinson's does not make you weak. So Parkinson's can make you stiff and slow, but it doesn't necessarily make your muscles weak. But inactivity over time can contribute to weakness. So I like this line: inactivity facilitates degeneration. So basically the use it or lose it concept, right? So as you age, you can lose some muscle mass, but not necessarily with Parkinson's, but it is a normal change. As we age, we lose 1% of muscle mass per year over the age of 60. And strength training and staying active can really help maintain your muscle mass as best as we can. So we have natural changes that are occurring with age, but Parkinson's itself does not necessarily make you weak. And the more that you exercise, the better you're going to feel. Okay, so we'll go through a couple of physical therapy hot topics with regards to managing your daily routine. So one topic or one question that Susan had specifically brought to us was, what's the best way to get out of bed? So getting out of bed, we use what's called the log roll technique. So we've got this guy pictured here. Basically with the log roll technique, you start by lying on your back and then you bend your knees up and you roll all the way onto your side. And then once you're rolled all the way, fully lying on your side, you slip your feet off of the bed and use your hands to push down off of the bed and come to seated upright on the edge of the bed. Now to get back into the bed, you're going to do the exact same thing, but in reverse. Back yourself up, have a seat on the edge of the bed, kind of situate yourself so you're close to the pillow, but not too close to the head of the bed. Lower yourself down onto your side, swing your feet up, and then roll onto your back. Looking at how high your bed is can be helpful. If your bed is too high, sometimes it can be challenging to get in and out of bed. So looking at maybe decreasing the height of your bed so it's not too low, but not too high. Or even adding like a step stool or something at the edge of your bed right here to help you step up onto. If you have difficulty getting in and out of bed, it can sometimes be more challenging with Parkinson's, right? Because you get more stiff, especially throughout the night. You're off your meds and you haven't been moving all night, so your muscles can be really stiff and you can feel really slow in the morning. So if getting out of bed is difficult, you can get a bed rail. These bed rails are pretty cheap and they make lots of different kinds, but you can get one that just slips in between your mattress and your box spring and just goes at the head of your bed, kind of close to where your pillows are. And then it helps facilitate that log roll technique. You can reach with your opposite arm and grab onto this bed rail and use the bed rail to push up and have a seat on the edge of the bed. It can be a helpful tool for a lot of patients. Okay, and then another question we had from Susan was about walkers and assistive devices and which ones are the best. So especially with COVID, you're spending a lot more time at home. We want to make sure that you're safe with your walking in the home and have the walker or assistive device that's going to suit you the best with your home setup. So first kind of walker is just a standard two-wheeled metal walker here. We don't recommend these very often. This would be kind of something that you would use short-term, probably not the best long-term solution. You tend to get it after like a hip replacement or something like that, something you won't be using for a very long time. Just with those two wheels, it doesn't allow you to move very fast and be very mobile. So we tend to recommend, aside from this two-wheeled walker, we tend to go for more of a four-wheeled walker, a rollator that has a seat and a basket and locking wheels, something that you can use to lock and stop and have a seat if you need to rest. Canes are an option. Working with a physical therapist to kind of best assess which is the best assistive device for you can be really helpful, trying out different ones in the clinic. Canes can sometimes be a little bit more difficult to coordinate, getting that opposite arm, opposite leg coordination. With Parkinson's, a lot of times you don't get a good arm swing, so it can be harder just to coordinate a cane. And a lot of times canes are used to support like a one-sided weakness or a little bit of an imbalance. And so we tend to kind of look more at walkers as being good support and stability from a balance perspective. Now, the U-step walker was designed specifically for patients with Parkinson's disease. It has this U-shaped base for improved stability. It's a little bit more narrow than your standard four-wheel walker, so it tends to navigate in the house really well and fit through narrow doorways. And it has lots of wheels on it. So you have good control and it turns in a tighter space than something like this four-wheel walker. In the house in a tighter space, you have an easier time with this U-step walker turning in like a 360-degree circle. And the U-step walker comes with, or has the option to come with, a cueing module, which we'll see on the next slide, that puts a laser on the ground, which can help with freezing. And the U-step walker is a reverse brake. So on these standard walkers, you have to push the brakes down to lock the walker. But for the U-step walker, when it's just there normally, it's locked. And then you have to pull up on either one or both of the brakes in order for the walker to go. So it's a little bit more safe in the sense that, you know, if you have like orthostatic hypotension or somebody who's maybe a little bit quicker to get up and just walk, it gives you kind of a reminder to slow down. Okay, and then some techniques for freezing. So like Heather said, high visual contrast can be important. She had that piece of tape on that threshold crossing through where the tile met the carpet. So that's something that we recommend often, is if you're having a lot of freezing, find the areas in your house that you're having increased freezing and increase the visual contrast. Maybe add lines of tape on the floor so that you can see it really well, and it gives you a cue of where to step your foot and can kind of help with the freezing. Another option for freezing that we use often is lasers. You can get a laser cane where a laser projects down onto the floor. And again, it gives you a cue of where to step your foot and helps give kind of a trick to your brain. The U-step walker, you can get this cueing module, like I said before. It's not covered by Medicare. Medicare will cover the U-step walker, but they won't cover this cueing module. You'll have to pay for that out of pocket. I think it's like 500 bucks. But the cueing module puts this laser on the ground in between the U-step walker and can be really helpful for people with freezing, especially if you're in tight spaces. You can kind of look down onto the floor and use that laser as a cue for where to step your foot. This next stride was kind of a newer product that we just started to be aware of. And this is a laser and another sound cueing module that has a little metronome on it too. And the U-step cueing module has that as well. That can be attached to anything. So it has these little elastic loops that you can clip on to anything, whether it's the walker that you already have or a cane or your pant loop. We've tried on some people to project a laser off of any item. And then both the next stride and the U-step cueing module has the option for a metronome in order to give you an auditory cue, which some patients benefit from for freezing. Okay, and then last one, super simple, is getting up off of a chair. So obviously this guy's sitting on a standard chair, which is not squishy, right? These firm chairs are a lot easier to get up off of. But with Parkinson's, you can get retropulsion, or that tendency to fall backwards. So when you go to stand up from a chair, a lot of times we don't get that good anterior weight shift or forward weight shift with our nose over our toes. And so because you don't get that forward weight shift, you go to stand up and you plop backwards, right? And so to compensate with sit to stands, what we always recommend is scoot your bottom to the edge of the chair and then get your feet nice and wide and get them supported underneath you. Shift your weight forward, get your nose over your toes, almost like you're reaching down to touch the floor. So it unweights your bottom, and then push through your legs to come up to stand. And then same way to go and sit back down. You're gonna lean forward, almost like you're reaching down to touch the floor, bend your knees and send your butt way back. And that can help if you have retropulsion or that tendency to fall backwards. And this is easier on a firm chair, but you would do the same concept if you have trouble getting off of like a squishy couch or something that you kind of sink down into. You've got to scoot yourself way forward, get yourself on the edge, and then lean way forward to stand up to kind of overcome that tendency to fall backwards. Parkinson's likes to make your movements really small. So that's why sometimes you don't get that normal big weight shift forward. And so we just have to over exaggerate the movements. Okay, so we want to leave plenty of time for questions. I know we had both PT and OT, some clinical pearls I hope were helpful with managing your daily routine, especially with COVID and being in the house more. We've got both of our emails here if you guys have any questions. We really appreciate Susan for having us, and we appreciate all of you guys for joining us. And then I will stop the screen share so I can see the chat. But if you guys want to jot down our emails, or if you want us to pull this back up at the end, we can do that too.
And I did see one of the questions was, will we send these slides? And we absolutely will. We have them in a PDF form. So some of the links that we have, you'll be able to click them and open those up. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, let's see. I think one of the questions was, let's see, we can start from the top. Let's see. How do you get the Aware and Care Kit? So I provided you a link on there. It's free on the Parkinson's Foundation website. So if you go to the parkinson.org and you type in Aware and Care Kit, it will pop right up. And you just type in your address and it will give it to you. You can actually download it immediately if you need it emergently. For those of you who are driving, it also has a medical card that says, I have Parkinson's, I am not intoxicated. So it doesn't misinterpret your slurred words or your slowed speech as, or your gait changes as intoxication. So it's also got a nice card in there that you can download immediately. But again, I will send those slides to Susan so you can just click that link if needed. And then Pete, yes, there are a lot of things you can do to improve your handwriting, and I'll just quickly go over a few because there's definitely a few things you can do. So first thing, Kim kind of alluded to this with sit to stands. You have to over exaggerate your movements. So Parkinson's makes your movements very small and slow. Same thing happens with your handwriting. So what happens is when you handwrite, the finger movements get really teeny tiny, and so does the handwriting. So first thing you have to do is over exaggerate your handwriting, which means you have to stretch your fingers. I know it sounds really silly, but you have to stretch your finger muscles. They get stiff, right? So you have to stretch your fingers. The next thing to do is reset the nervous system. So probably one of the easiest things you could try to do is, as soon as the handwriting looks really sloppy or small, what you're going to do is lift up your pen, look away, and come right back to it. So like sign your first name, look away, come right back to it. And then what happens from there is it resets the nervous system and it's kind of like a freeze, but for your fingers, and it resets the nervous system. So right away. There's a few different grasps you can try. So you need to try those with your occupational therapist to see, because sometimes it takes away how, improves how your fingers are doing. And then definitely make sure you stabilize your arm on the table as much as you can. But there's definitely several things you can do to improve your handwriting. Use lined paper as much as you can. Try to do that. So I think that was the question. And then Kathleen and I were chatting in the side about her Apple Watch that unfortunately didn't work. And she was saying, I said, hopefully it was a bug that her watch didn't work, but sometimes she said when she called the Apple group that sometimes it doesn't work depending on how you fall. So if you don't fall fast enough, which is ironic, if you don't fall fast enough, it doesn't call. So yeah. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, Kathleen, I will say, and obviously, hopefully you were okay and everything is good. With the Apple Watch, even if your fall detection does not go off, you have two buttons on the side. You have that red, or could be black, little spinny button, and then you have a smaller, flatter button below that. And if you press and hold that flatter button and you keep holding it, it's going to be able to call EMS. So there's a little thing on the bottom there. I don't know if you can see it. You can slide over that SOS. And you can call EMS even if your fall detection doesn't go off. So if you fall and it doesn't go off, but you're not okay and you need to call someone, you can use that little bottom button.
Thanks, Kim. Kim, you want to answer the next question about the maintenance? How does maintenance work?
From Shireen, let's see. My husband had 3 months of PT and OT and achieved the goals the therapist set for him. However, I see him go back to his old ways. How does maintenance work? So like Heather said, some clinics and some therapists are kind of set in doing more frequent therapy, but like a shorter bout, like maybe a couple of months, and then you're discharged once you achieve your goals. But like you said, Shireen, with a progressive condition, you know, the consideration is you see therapy and you get better, but then when you go back and you kind of go back to your old routine and you're not continuing with all of the things that you were doing there, you can kind of go back to where you were before. So the goal of maintenance is to try and get you to the point where you've achieved your goals and you're doing well, and then we keep you there. So Medicare does cover this with a progressive condition. They cover what's called a maintenance program, and that's like 1 to 2 PT or OT visits a month. It's going to have to be a discussion with your physical or occupational therapist to see if that's something that they're comfortable with. But essentially, they would just set some long-term goals and write the plan of care out for the visits to just be once or twice a month. And as long as, you know, they're doing good documentation and billing correctly, it shouldn't be a problem. And Heather, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, and essentially we tell people, you know, we're giving you the eyes, we're looking at you once or twice a month, right? So if you can see PT the first week, and maybe PT, OT, and then speech, and then PT, OT, and speech, and rotate it once a week or so. We say we're giving you an eye, so you're seeing someone in our clinic every week, so you know you're not slacking, right? But we're still only seeing the discipline once a month. And they're different, you know, pockets of funding. And then we're making sure they're exercising and we're calling them out, right? Hey, how's your exercise going? Did you go to your class? Did you do that? Right? But yet we're still only seeing them once a month, but we're just rotating disciplines. So that way they're always consistent, but it's not that we're having to see them every week. So, you know, that's the really important part about having a team approach, right? And we can write our goals in that way. And so I'm working with Kim, I'm working with our speech therapist on finding out what their goals are so that I can match my goals to work as a team and make sure that we're making these maintenance goals work, and really just, you know, accountability for that apathy, right? And how to make sure that you're not becoming apathetic, and I'm going to call you out on it, right? And that's what we're here for. I tell people, you got to like your therapist, right? Because we're going to be annoying and we're going to be your family, and right, we're going to have battles, and you got to like us because you're stuck with us, right? This isn't someone that goes away. So find someone you like and that will give you a hard time and will say, we're going to kick your butt once a month. And that's okay, because that's what you need. Any other questions? I know this is a lot of like, we spit everything out to you in like random mode, because we could talk forever, but is there anything else?
I'm not sure. You answered so many great things. And as this disease progresses, then obviously, you know, I just learned things that I've never learned because now he's in that stage where he wasn't in that stage. So it's ongoing, and that's why we need these informative presentations. So thank you so much. Does anybody have any other questions?
I do have a question. I've had Parkinson for 10 years. I've exercised the whole 10, 11 years, but as time is going on, it's become more difficult where I become more fatigued after I exercise, and where it requires for me to lay down and nap to get that muscle recovery. Like you said in one of your things, that we should continue with the exercise, but sometimes it does add to the fatigue.
Yeah, so I definitely, as the disease progresses, the type of exercise and maybe the intensity and the duration might change a little bit. So even with that fatigue, I mean, the goal is still to get 5 days a week, but you might notice that, you know, you used to be able to jog or run, and now that's not a feasible option for you. So like Heather said, we're going to check in, you know, as the disease progresses, and the exercise goals and the type might change as well as the disease progresses. But even with that fatigue is unfortunately part of the disease, and it's kind of multifactorial and sometimes hard to pinpoint why you're getting so fatigued. But if you were to not exercise and be sedentary, my expectation is that your fatigue would get worse. And so I think continuing to exercise despite that fatigue is really important.
Yeah, I continue to exercise, but I find sometimes, like yesterday I exercised at 4:30, and then last night I struggled sleeping.
Mhm.
And I woke up this morning. So I may just need to adjust that time, make sure I don't exercise
Exactly.
at 4:30.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes, exercising in the morning can be more beneficial for someone. We also recommend if you have a time that you feel like you're really on your meds, to make that your time to exercise so that you feel really good and your body's moving really well. So if you maybe have a morning time where you feel like I'm on my meds, that would be a good time to fit your exercise in.
Okay.
Yeah.
If the fatigue can be frustrating, to say the least.
The fatigue can be very frustrating. Absolutely.
Thank you. This was very informative. Thank you so much.
I do have
Thank
a
you.
question.
Thank you very much. It was great.
Mhm.
I'm not sure who just said that because we've been doing them from the chat. Someone just asked if they had a question.
I have a question.
Yeah, Rachel, go ahead.
During the past few weeks, I've noticed that I feel much stiffer, much sooner. Even sitting a few minutes when I get up, I feel stiff, and certainly overnight. Any ideas how to deal with that?
So, stiffness is one of the main symptoms of the disease. The more you can stay moving, the better. Obviously, you need to rest throughout the day, but making sure you're on a really good stretching program is helpful. So if you don't have a good stretching program, making sure you have some good stretches that you're doing. We recommend at least once a day minimum. A lot of people, we recommend twice a day, first thing in the morning, and then maybe midday when you're feeling a little bit extra stiff. And then if you're feeling really stiff, it might be a conversation with your doctor to see if you're underdosed or if you need more meds.
Thank you.
And I do want to just real quickly answer, because I know we have to go shortly, but I see a couple of the same questions in the chat about where to find an OT and PT who specialize in Parkinson's. And, we have a list of, first off, I would recommend going to a neurological clinic. So typically they're hospital-based clinics. So if there's an outpatient clinic that has neurological therapists, that's where I would start. So typically places that are orthopedic clinics are not going to be where you have Parkinson's specialists. Now that's not always the case, but that's if I were just starting randomly. The other thing is I would ask Susan here. I don't want to guarantee, but my guess is Susan has some great recommendations for PTs and OTs in the area, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay. And the reason why we're here is we're here to tell you, just ask for function, right? Exercise is great, but ask for function, right? We want you to do exercise, but have a list of things that are difficult for you and ask it. Sitting to standing, walking, going downstairs, dressing, bathing, toileting, X, Y, and Z. So these are the things that we're hoping you ask for. So Susan can help point you in the right directions for people that know how to do the great exercise in your area.
Yes, definitely.
And we will
Can I-
send her the slides, I promise.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, Pete.
The biggest challenge I have is when I fill my plate, send sit to eat, I'm carrying the plate, go to the table, my hands are shaking, and I feel like I'm going to drop the plate or the food. So I don't know what to do, but what I do now is just to compensate is take small portions and fill the plate lightly.
Yeah, it's hard. So your tremors will oftentimes worsen when you're walking, right? Because Parkinson's doesn't like to dual task. So when you put something in your hands when you're walking, either your walking gets worse or the what's in your hands get worse. So one of the best things you can do from a non-medication standpoint is to not stack your plate as high, right? Or not fill your bowl as high. So that you've done a great accommodation.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, may I add something there? If you buy a tea cart or a bar cart, you can put your plate and glass and everything on that and roll it to the table. So you don't have to carry it so far.
Or if you have a U-step, you can put them on the seat as you're going from the kitchen to your place of eating.
Great recommendation.
It works good. And the U-step, the prompt on the laser on U-step is $270 more.
Thanks, Chuck. Yeah. Okay, so it's 270. I overestimated.
Do you people do any virtual PT and OT?
Unfortunately, we have not been approved through our university system for virtual at this point. We do have, there is someone down in Tampa who used to work here, Meredith DeFranco, who used to work here at our center for about 8 years. She's now in Tampa and is doing virtual PT down in Tampa now. And she is closer to you guys now if you are looking for a good PT, and she's starting some nonprofit Parkinson's groups as well too. So
what's her name?
Meredith DeFranco. We can get you connected with her. So if you're looking for a PT and willing to drive to the Tampa area, she used to work at our center and helped be one of the founders of our rehab gym here. So we can help get you connected with someone that we fully trust if you're really interested in someone who loves people with Parkinson's as well.
Is there a particular watch, Kim? Is there a particular watch that you recommend?
I recommend the Apple Watch quite a bit because it does a really good job of tracking your fitness, and then it has that fall detection as well.
Is there one type of Apple Watch?
So the fall detection is only on the newer generations.
I think it's 3 and above, right? Or 4 and above. So you don't have to get the Apple 6. The Apple 6, like $600. I think you can get like an Apple, 4, right?
Yeah, you can always double check on the when you go to buy it to see if it's on there, but it's definitely the newer generations. Marlon says 4 and above.
Mhm.
And then Shireen asked how much is the next stride? That's the one that's $500. So that's why I'm to $500. But the company is relatively new. So if financially that's challenging, you reach out to their support team and they're happy to try and help.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. We'll send the slides to Susan. I know we have to get going, but we appreciate you all.
Oh, thank you so much. We learned so much, and it's just been great. So we appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Thank you
Have a great rest of your
everyone.
day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.